Ole, that samale ngaro de leche, andire, legundu me sam dustine, jike, jedi, jelea jisuirada, xue yinje.
Good morning. So firstly, I just want to acknowledge the traditional owners of Jaja Warung country on which this retreat is being held. And I pay homage to the elders, past, present, and to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. And then I want to say specifically to everyone physically here, welcome. And those watching on YouTube, welcome. And I'm glad to have this opportunity to meet you all.
Alright, 먼저 된다 디 닝보디 가 차사다 제 미나레 둔조이나레 차사다가 주의 지게 대화되어 봐셔다 장장체 동아미되어 봐셔다 자되어 징아 차상가 하고 그러봐 되네 자다가 주기 대화 지게 레가로 치카르 체비나다가 차사 다지 심지 둔조이나다 미나다 가리네 수수기 지기 디기 주변에 돈달이야 지기 레가체야다 강아세에게 돈달이야 지기 도시네 레가체도 굉장히 책으로 와.
All of us here, in fact, ourselves and all beings on a fundamental level are exactly the same in that we all want to experience only happiness. None of us, whether human or animal or any type of being, wants to experience even the slightest problem, suffering, or difficulty. And this wish to experience only happiness and overcome all problems is the underlying motivation behind everything that we do. Every physical act we engage in, all that we say and think, is motivated for all of us by this wish for happiness.
세계 탑람 송바 냐냐레 상이기 송야기 최디기 차산다 랍절마 선당아줄 지게 디기 주타 데네데네 두고레 동아세알이야 데네데네 세오레 세기 디기 주야다 동아세에게 탑람 냐냐 송고로와.
And recognizing this fundamental truth and this fundamental equality between beings, everything that the historical Buddha Shakyamuni taught, the entirety of his teachings, was given for this one purpose, to help beings, or to guide beings in how to cultivate their mind in order to attain lasting happiness and gain freedom from all forms of problem and difficulties. So this was the underlying motivation behind all the teachings that the Buddha gave.
동아영화 지금 거래 나삼로 다나던데 동아 영화지 이용고라 동아 영화대 이용고래 제스다 동아세게 탑람델라양 아주기 류게 지게 수볼이야 나자다 네나저데 맨주에야다 되네게 토네 치 의비게 다 차바이나 안 동아 가서 둘로 거야다 죄메 다야라 소바다 되네야 차와치베네 아지 지게 시부셔야라 소바 되네 토네 아주 동아세 쇠야다 내가 되게 주투야다 동아세야도 용거로와 직내다 양직 나sam류 토네 되네게 치용 튕기게 토네 동아세 마토바다 되게 주 마토바 된 나sam류 토네 삼로 다제 되게 주야다 동아세야디 니 용거로와 되네자 다 상여 좀는 되게 최게 냠내세야디 세야디 조나 아주 나sam류 토네 되게 주야다 동아세야디 조 송거래다.
The happiness that we have experienced comes from two sources. One is the outer source. So this would be everything to do in the material world, from our bodies to our surroundings. And the other source is our way of thinking, our mind, the inner source. Likewise, with problems and difficulties that we experience, they too have those same sources, either from the outer material world, again our body, or those around us, or this environment around us, and our inner world, our way of thinking. So there are those two sources for both happiness and problems. And thereby, or therefore, we need corresponding solutions to those problems. So the problems that arise from the material world can be dealt with through material development. So problems such as hunger, thirst, cold, and so forth, this is taken care of by ensuring that our material world is well developed. So we have excellent medical care, a safe and comfortable home, nutritious food, and so forth. And in this way, we overcome problems to do with the material world. But to achieve happiness and overcome problems to do with our inner world, our way of thinking, there the solution cannot be from the material world. It needs to be corresponding. It needs to be our inner world. Thereby, by transforming our inner way of thinking, we experience inner happiness and we overcome all forms of mental aggravation and so forth. And this was the focus of the entirety of the Buddhist teachings, how to transform our inner world so as to attain lasting, stable happiness.
and the jig rasin, the chitu, and the course rasin be couple sosugi jambati pa meba nyam rugoro, then zadigal gablia, then Nazata sim ganga sogo marwa. Dini zada yanjik chang nube pa ye rodu yanja ganga de leo, which is a ganga say to your mever, just a chang to kashi chang to go kashi that, jig mem me loss of session, the chigor, the ganga say to the chigor that. And digi and the jig so solio subunio subula gangate and digangilla and nobody ye to do and subudi nazamanga di and the same gangate matavajanki to catch it. Just that the nazagala nazamaro ganga mar so you just a ding on jugi and jiki ganga semi ganga setandi tablamti machine begin ye in the Hungorwa. Just that Sangi big number Sangi big chugi 20 sidda jig samlo sosu samlo la ya jig samlo kwarnalia and samlo tajin de ganga sigri esit jisan samlo tawi thone ji sam tawi de ne de negi thone chang do la so fa similar samo je semye sang ganga di se tugo wa jisan do chine.
The material development in our world over the last many centuries has had a great impact on material comfort for beings. But whatever material development has happened and is still to come will only ever have a limited impact on the mind. It cannot resolve one from inner problems. It cannot lead to lasting happiness, mental happiness. But not understanding this, and through primarily having familiarity, through solving problems through the material means, people try to overcome their inner turmoil by relying on material needs. For example, to deal with stress and pressure and unhappiness in life, it's very common and has been for a long time for people to drink alcohol. And by drinking alcohol, dulling their mind, this leads to temporary respite from problems. But as has been found again and again, that relief is only temporary. When one sobers up, when the alcohol wears off, the problems return. And likewise, if one relies on medication or other means, other material means, to try and deal with inner problems, the impact can only ever be limited. And in fact, because the root causes, our way of thinking is not being addressed, then problems tend to mount up. So the focus of the teachings of the Buddha is on transforming our way of thinking, through transforming our way of dealing with everything that we encounter. This is the method that is relied on to bring about an attainment of lasting, stable happiness, a happiness that is not punctuated by problems and difficulties. And as one develops one's mind, one's way of thinking, one becomes ever less reliant on the material world to deal with challenges. One is able to ever more skillfully deal with all that one encounters.
아니니로 대진에 자당 삼루당위 토네 근데 삼루당지 두신 지게 강아세야지도 디디기 셈기 강아세 바마세 하는 아주 류리 강아 옆에네 류리 강아데세 두고 삼루당위 토네 배낭하는 줄이야 지게 잘라 지 소소고야게 잘라데 매베 두로디게 지 소소고야게 두로디게 마라위게 지게 강하다 근데 모자 매베 강아 강바 매베 강아 데지 세마기바 망보요도 왕알레 데니스 민도 밀리샨달 데니도 강바도 모자도 나지 민도 셈베게 섬 강아 중고로 와다가지 매비자 잘라 매베 대체 사야동야데 딱다메 두로데 야부고야메데 강아 중고로 와 진짜 디니게 삼다메 토네 지금 냠내지도 뒤충 촉시에 제제 냠내지 뒤에와 총어 촉시에 봐지 냠내지 능아의 예제도 수름 송화라서 봐지 되는지 곰 냠내지 등에 질래 되네 둘로야 보면 디고래 제산 둘로 직권 교보시네 디고래 칼라이네 교보시라나 디고 되서로시네 고강원이 주 거야 막 직변의 행동하다 잡보다 되네게 지게 잘받아 되는 경우서 되는 디고로와 제가 되는게 셈나 되중 초시에 삼다에도 되는게 지금 뭐다 매비 강아 안 둘로 야고 고야 매비 강아 칼라사야 말비 강아 디수치서 강아디게 지퉁기 되네 지퉁기 마상여 강아디게 봐 세고로와 안 되는게 미 냠는지네 지 똑발라서만 야야야 조베네 지니 지금 띵이진 되게 봐 토는데 얘네 류기 아니 류기 나자다 강아디게 묘줘야 라서바다 아니 지게 칼라이네 지 띵이제 띵이제 공부 또 비데 칼라라바 사모고 와라서바 용구로와 어디네 자지 지사 삼로 터네 냠네 제바 때네 낭 삼려 강아디게 세 투바 마세 치 튕기에 터네 강아 마용바디게 강아디 세 투에 용고래 치 튕기기 전에 강아세야 돼네 용투고 말다 나 삼려게 강아디 세 투고 말 제가 니니듯이 오케아바 침보시 우주에 되거래.
The mind is something of really remarkable power. And through developing our mind, it has a transformative, it leads to a transformation in our relationship to the material world. In that, as we transform or develop our mind, our reliance on the material world to overcome problems and to achieve happiness, this starts to change. So, for example, people experience regular or perhaps regular unhappiness in relation to their material condition, usually feeling, I don't have enough material wealth, I'm poorer than I would like to be, or not being happy with what they eat. This food that I eat, I wish I could afford better food. Or the home I live in, the car that I drive, it's a bit rubbish. I'd much rather have one a bit better. So this level of discontentment that leads to always a wanting ever more, never being satisfied, this is a regular state of dis-ease that afflict most people. But as one, through relying on the teachings, transforms one's way of thinking, deepens one's understanding of the teachings, one starts to develop an attitude of contentment, where one is starting to recognize that the material world has a limited impact on one's happiness, but through transforming one's mind, one achieves ever greater happiness. Therefore, one starts to become sincerely content with one's material circumstances, recognizing that this food, well, it may be the same, I eat the same every day, it may not have much variety, but it nourishes me. That's enough. This car that I have, it gets me from A to B, that's enough. And one starts to develop a sincere inner contentment. This comes together with a weakening of one's yearning, one's desire for ever more. And thereby one starts to feel more at ease in the world, less reliant on praise from others, on admiration from others, but more content within. And this development continues ever further, leading to one's mind becoming ever freer from such desires, from turning to relying on the material world for happiness, for overcoming our problems, but is able to transform all experiences and be ever more content, ever more at ease with one's environment and circumstances, and one's mind becomes ever freer. So this is an illustration of the great power of the mind, that the mind, as we transform our mind, our relationship with the material world also starts to change.
로봇님도 즉 가보니 뭐지 가도니 갑리야 둘로 가고 한 참점도도 안지 둘로 한 거라서 마다 가고 이제 둘로 미라면 즉 망부라식 고도와 진짜 다 되니 그거로 봐. 당 아주 랍중으로 신내 가르선에 지게 둘로 가 저에 직발에 둘로 마법 시즌션도 주주 장마라 제디네고 미소 so 지소를 지도비네 냠도비네 디콘드레 참냠도나 디콘드레 샬데나 디콘드레 진짜 둘로 지구디기 가오드나 디팅어서지 가르선 거 삼문나야 다 되니기 지고 산이 좀 된디기 전에 아니 지게 망아주기 뒤따 랍중 진짜 둘로 켈린제도 두sten제 반장 켈린 담자도 디기다고 둘로 다마 가오드나 둘로 가가 고야 메바 미적 되네 고고 날되네 고야 민선베 셈데 요마다 강아지요 말 진짜 디 가오드베네 둘로 마고 찍고 고야지네 가오드나 디레 샬디나 칼라 쇠디 갑리나 디고야 레가 레디 갑나 디곤 찍어로와 바 참장로나 디곤 두고로와 나 야지디와 제고르다 디나 디곤 두고로와 찍고 진짜 둘로 가가 고야 스케민도와 진짜 진짜 되네게 삼담에 내가지고다 지게 삼단탕에 토네 둘로래야 지 망용이 캬바 휴쇼고도 하대 내가 통쳐스기 봐 책으로 와.
For example, if you think of your wardrobe at home, the number of outfits that you have there, you have many different kinds of clothes. There's those that you wear at home. There's those that you, when you just want to relax and be comfortable. There are those that you need to wear for work, so that you need to present yourself in a particular way. There are those that you wear when you're having a fun time out with your friends. And there's those that you wear maybe if you're trying to impress someone, if you're going out on a date. So you have all these various outfits, and probably quite a number of them. Then you compare it to someone who moves away from that way of living and decides to ordain. So the Buddha prescribed just one outfit, and that's what one wears no matter what one does. So if one is out with one's friends, if one is at a place of work such as this, or inside our home, the clothes are always the same. And here you can see really quite a difference. And this serves a great purpose to remind us of a way to live a life. So here really is quite a very visual and stark difference.
이나 쪼로 지가서 셈 냠는 지게 셈 삼로 땅타기 호네 땅안 줄이야 강아셔야 된 디기도 되기 삼로 땅타디 달랍주 쪼 산이 최선해야 돼 지송거로 와다.
Buddha Shakyamuni, our founder teacher, in his the vastness of his teachings, he did speak about the need to care for one's environment, or to live in harmony with one's environment, as well as living in harmony with our community, caring for our community. So there is some focus on the external, but primarily the focus of his teachings was on transforming our mind.
samlota nyamlen che rimba che songro she se ya jerim chilya shu an jerim che korong zo da korong zebe da shen semchen tamjele pembi ge chido an jerim che kalo denege chu song she bodi an sem nyam samlota da ge thone da do chin song she bodi sik nyong chi yore da nga di dering a di ko ma shu yore.
So for our time together, we're going to look at this very short text from Lama Tsongkhapa, which is a written reply from him to a request from a student of his, Lodropel, from Lodropel. So a student, Lodropel, requested advice from Lama Tsongkhapa, requested advice on how he could be of benefit to sentient beings. So what we're looking at here is Lama Tsongkhapa's brief reply.
아다 지금 용용지마도 요마데 이네 돈다디 차상 차되게 안지기 저 삼다이 냠르제 나 띵사부 야첨부 유딩 최고래.
Whilst it's just a few words here, 4 verses, the meaning is both vast and deep.
나나 보고도데 마치데 뢰딘 쾌게 달라 판되나 세디 최시지들의 제양치 지딘 치마랑 내버려 줘 살외 네지를 치마된도 예와 릭사.
The first verse, you who have many qualities wrote to me with a longing to be of benefit. Regardless of your circumstances and what you have created in this life, it is certain that you will have to go to your next rebirth. Therefore, it makes sense to strive to benefit your future lives.
아당 보고는 뢰된시로다 다 뢰된시데 지당 뢰단 덴바시데 뢰된시데 전주선발이야 아니 뢰된 전주선바시데 뢰단 덴바시 전주선발이야 저 뢰된 전주선바시 뢰단 덴바시데 고야지 용거래.
So the first word in the Tibetan is has many qualities. So this is usually a word that can be translated as wise bodhisattva, because it's usually an address for a bodhisattva. The meaning is having many qualities.
다 데네게 뢰젠시데 로세디 간조 삼로티 시고로와 데인시데 데네 삼로도 예바라고 돈다데 축식디 주변에 로세디 간조 삼로다 삼로티 데인시데 예바서 다 로세디 로간에실레 로 차상래고 로간에실레스네 레니기 넘버 셰바 디니치네나 디오주야라야 탑람 디니디니데 삼로 디니시타바이나 안 디토네 아주 디기 투구도 강아세 투구도 삼로 디니시여바이나 안디 삼로 델라티네 아주레 강알이야다 랑레 강알이야 셴레 강알이야 디니시용도와 셈베게 자치코 아주 강아 용야기 농어야기 유 삼로다 용야기 디니디니 레도와서 하고야당 데네 다데 소소기 디기 두야제 셴레 펜버 두야기 데니디니실 디제반디네 용도와 셈베 데니게 야도게 예와 남미의 최신비게 하고 한 로데라 삼로데라다 로세 다디 로세 디고골마도 디고골 로세 데니제데다 로 덴세도 제상 로 덴세 데니게 로 레니게 남미의 최신게 로 유행 가사데라 다 르덴세 주스고래.
Let's look at the meaning of this word, loden. So it has these 2 particles. The first is lo, and the second is den. Lo or lo. This is awareness, as in we'll know it from the topic awareness and knows, lo rig. So the first word is lo, and the second is den. Lo means awareness, den means to have or to possess. So the first word and so this is a word that can be translated as wise bodhisattvas and an epithet for bodhisattvas. So awareness here doesn't refer to just any mind, but specifically to the awareness of or the knowledge of the various wholesome or virtuous ways of thinking that need to be cultivated within, because they are the ways of thinking that lead to happiness for others and oneself, as well as awareness or knowledge of the ways of thinking that need to be eradicated, because these ways of thinking lead to suffering and problems for oneself and others. So this is what one has awareness of or knowledge of. And the person who has that, so that's the first syllable, the lo, and the second den, this refers to the person who has such a way of thinking.
제가 장주 셈바디기 가르친 거라서네. 제가 장주 셈바 세야디 혼어도 장주 셈바디 제가 코발이야 누가 용해디 귀디 녀몽바텔레 리기도 제가 심전 탐지 코와디레 저고도 다 코와레 제제 누가레 타야게 탑람데 가르레스네. 야 안에 셈지게 동아르게 탑 약속도 수도 상계 고반 레샤 제사 셈제 탐지게 상계 고반 토고도 셈비게 삼로 전주 셈 귤레게 제사 셈제 탐지게 동아 세야게 탑람데 가르레샤 수도다 진바다 수련 쇠바 준제 삼데 다음에 봐 동방이 두베 셔라콤 니곰발레 때네 아니 녀몽바티게 파세 데네 안 상계 고바 타바 탐지게 고바 톱토고도 셈비 데네게 레니게다 코발로 주에 탑람 셈전 탐조 코발을 줘야지 야 상기 살아 고야게 탑람 차상디 량이 남이 킹기어 봐서 디니게 캠비게 데 장주 셈전 탐조도 상기 고바 토벌 지긴 시베 삼로 디니게 야첨보다 여바 인자 장주 셈비기로 여바 인자 제사 장주 셈발로 르텐세 디니게 삼로 야첨보 셈전 탐지 동아세야 디기 두비에게 탑람 차상 캠비 토네 호스 냠술 렌디게 셈제 돈달라 펜베 셴레 펜바바지 두두겐 디네 코란 산지고 봐 토발레 돈돈이에시 디네기 냠렌 제티바자 삼로 디니시오바자다 제주셈발레 르텐 제주셈바스 로데세데 로데 도스치네 르텐 제주셈바스 미 또 첸디디네 토고르와다.
So that then was the meaning of the two particles making up the word loden. So then applying it to bodhisattva, which is how it's usually utilized. So the reason for calling a bodhisattva loden would be because this refers to a practitioner, a person, hence the den is someone who possesses these qualities. It refers to a practitioner who has come to deeply, at a profound level, understand why they are suffering. They've come to recognize that it is the afflictions that lead to their suffering, because it's afflictions that lead to the accumulation of karma that is contaminated by these afflictions and thereby keeps them bound in the suffering realms of samsara. And they've recognized that until those afflictions are eradicated, they will continue to suffer, giving rise to a wish to gain freedom from those afflictions. They then reflected on the situation of all other beings, recognizing that all other mother sentient beings are in that same situation, all yearning for happiness, but are suffering because of the dominance of the afflictions on their continuum. This practitioner then developed deep compassion, wanting all beings to gain freedom from these afflictions, and thereby freedom from suffering and abiding in lasting happiness. And they developed this compassion to the extent where they took personal responsibility for the welfare of others, where others being guided to gain freedom from their own afflictions, this practitioner, this person, took as their own individual responsibility. But recognizing, though, that they are still an ordinary being, they themselves are still dominated by their afflictions, and therefore their capacity to benefit others is very limited. They develop the determination to become the supreme guide, a being who can perfectly help others, a being who themselves is freed of all the afflictions entirely and thereby can help others, namely a Buddha. So here the practitioner first develops the deep compassion that takes responsibility for the welfare of others, and then conjoins that with the determination that in order to fulfill this compassionate aim, they must become a Buddha. And this is the generation of the mind of enlightenment, the mind that is set on achieving enlightenment so as to help others. And in Sanskrit, this is bodhicitta. So this person then has developed bodhicitta, and in order for them to actually become a Buddha, they engage in meditating or cultivating the qualities contained within the six perfections, namely generosity, ethics, patience, joy, perseverance, concentration, and wisdom. So these are the qualities. This is what is known. This is what is known by this person. So this is the law. This is what is known by them, and they have these qualities. So it's not a mere intellectual knowledge, but it's cultivated within. So this is the den. So again, the law refers to that they've generated all the bodhicitta and are engaging in the perfections. And this isn't, so that's a law. And the den is that it's not just merely known intellectually. This is something they have. It's something they possess. So therefore, Loden refers to a practitioner who's striving for Buddhahood. In other words, a bodhisattva engaging in the practice in the six perfections.
Bendigo Donye you can chasal go to Guru. Just a little in Kyi, just not a little in Kyi, the Loma Coronia, Kerong and Jiga in Deo Tuviata, Dunga say Tablam, Denigi Kerong, that Dunga say what did you do, Sempe Coronia, Jig, Denigi, Lenyegi, Namie Sheshi, Coronia. Which she wrapped down the nickel law. You did by you the Resha said, Kara Dinish do said that Korongi, the Lomati Kishu, which by Sungo, Ludin said.
So the Tibetan starts with Loden, that's the first word, then follows the word you. So in other words, that you is saying that this here, what will follow, so we have it as the first word, and it's showing that what will follow is addressed to the author of the initial request, Lodropel. So Lama Tsongkhapa here is now about to give this bodhisattva, Lodropel, advice on how to practice in order to be of great benefit to all beings.
And then in Ludin Kyi and Dala, City Cherim Cheron Sungore. There's not that Ludin Kuron Lenny, Namig, that Chige, Dewa Duba, the Dunga, Meduba, Devi Tablam, Denigi, that Jinyam Jia, Devich, Kurongi, Delia, and Ngalia, Dala, so Ngalia, Denigi, Lobdun Chima, Che, Sunrache, Shuva de las or Dalas, and Shuvare, says it, and Kurongi Ngalia to Sine, Sunrache, Shuvare, says it, Sungorwachi, Ludin Kyi, Dala.
The Tibetan continues with the word then I, or it's translated as me. So here Lama Tsongkhapa is saying, as we can see, you wrote to me. So therefore it's very clear that this is advice from Lama Tsongkhapa himself to his students.
Dondo correct, Dondo years in Shubarelamna, Korongi, Koronga Dunga say, and Digi to your Soso Ralaya, and Dunga say, Digi to ye Pemba, Pen, Pemba to ye Dondala, Chiche, and then Dimase, and Chigi, Shanlia, Shen you Dunga say, and Digi to ye, Shanlia, Pemba to be Tablam di Yamsu Leg Dondala, Koronga di Yamlin Chigis, Koronga that Denegi, Namiege, Lanyege, Namia Hako, Sherloda, Demba, Loda and then Koronga that Chige. Shanlia, Pemba to Balaya, Rangi Yomo se, and the Chi and the Ponson top of the top Budu, Sambege, Donye, Sosoranangeda, Semjen Dundala, Shanlia, Pemba to Yege, and Chi Dundala, Tarba Tamji Kimbo, Gobantoyega, Donye Tumba Yevache, Donye Tumba Ye, Dimazan, Denye Tone, Shanlia, Pemba to Vegi, Pendo Jachimbo Druege, Dondo Yerche, Korangalia, Chus, Moches, and Shuvares, Cesar.
And then the line concludes with addressing the Lama Tsongkhapa is addressing the motivation of his students, their motivation behind this letter, which is you wrote to me with, and then it's this, a longing to be of benefit. So Lodropel has expressed to his teacher Lama Tsongkhapa a deep wish, a deep yearning to be of benefit. So how to be of benefit? Well, this is twofold. It comes about firstly, through being of benefit to yourself, you can be of benefit to others, which expresses slightly differently. Through transforming your own mind, you have ever more capacity to be of benefit to others. And to express it then in a third way, through transforming your own mind, thereby eradicating the causes of suffering and cultivating the causes of virtue, you will be of ever more benefit to others because you will be able to guide them to eliminate the causes of suffering on their own mind and cultivate virtue on their own mind. So these are different ways to understand how one is of benefit. So in this line, we see Lama Tsongkhapa recognizing that his student already has many good qualities. So he already has a deep understanding of the wholesome minds to cultivate and the unwholesome minds to eradicate. And Lama Tsongkhapa is going to guide him in how to be of ever more benefit.
On the city, Dondadi, do Shinanga Chikpa, Godior, Dumdevor, Shuvaina, Chisancherim Chiki, Corona, Karasungorasine, Kura, down near Korea Dungale, Chikpa, Nibo Minus, and Nibo Meva Ton, the Korea Dunga Delia, Koala Tarduge, Sambaki, Chisnadi, Pen, Pemba, Siduda, Korea Deola Tarachin, Tingi, Deva, the Sosugi, Toyak, Doni, Dumba, then the Dumbaki. The next Java, and Dimasi, and Karangi, Shihele in a young, the Niki Digi to Viata, Dunga Segi, and the Chik Tablan Pemba, Shihele, Pembi, Dunda, Dushina, some Daji, some Daiza, Kuron Loda Dembades, Jisa Kuron, and the Jiggy, the Niki Lany, Namia, how could the share up the Dembaredos, Kuron Loda Dembaredo, Jisan Kurongi, the new Gunia Lange and Alia, Chu Sono Chichi, she has Shubare, that the Kuron only that Jiggy. Tarba Duni, somebody Koala engagement, Tarba to somebody, Shelia, Shen Dunga said that Shelia de Pendi to be somebody, Nishkiva, the somebody bear or a Kurong, then the Lenny numbers, Yatuga, how good you load at them by how good load at them by Resha, Chesa Delangalia, Chusma sharing, Kuron, Chick, she, Kuron that, Sheva de Kuron, Pantoya Wungure, don't I knew what this word that.
In this first line, then Lama Tsongkhapa is saying to his student Lodropel, firstly, his state is using the term Loden. So he's stating to his student, I recognize that you have developed many excellent qualities. And explicitly, because taken from the understanding of this word Loden, the understanding that I recognize that you have come to see that samsara, cyclic existence, has no essence. In other words, there's nothing worth striving for. There's no experience or rebirth worth striving for in samsara because it has no essence. No lasting happiness can be experienced or attained in samsara. You have recognized this and therefore have given rise to your determination to gain freedom from the suffering realms of samsara in its entirety. I recognize you have that quality. And not only have you developed that, but then based on your own recognition of your own situation, you have looked at the situation of others, and deep compassion has arisen, recognizing they are in the same helpless state, and that thereby a determination arose within to strive to help others gain freedom from samsara too. So this then is the meaning of having many good qualities, or loden. This is what Lama Tsongkhapa is recognizing his student as. Therefore, where we see his motivation of longing to be of benefit, Lama Tsongkhapa is explicitly recognizing the qualities of his student, praising the qualities of his student, and agreeing to reply to his letter, agreeing thereby to help his student develop those excellent qualities ever further.
On the most soon the teenage, that Duhanlia Kargugur Sindelia, Chesa, Church, Yamen Cheval, Kunlomas on that in school race or that a Korea Dunga de Shembel, Kor Dungala Tar, Dele Tarbe, Tarba, Dingy, Deva Tobudu, Sembe, Samlochi, Samlo, Juna Dinish, that Dele to Skachawa some time, Chesa, that Semjan Tamji. Korea Dunga de la Dresha, Simjan Tamjeling a Pemper, Paddy Jubin, Chisa Simjan Tamje, Korea Dunga Dresha, Sanya Salagoyade, Nay Paddy Jubin, Sempe, Guno, the Nigga Samlo Guno Chigores, the Niguno Tone and the Junior Gores, Nimlet Gores, Chisa the Nigga Zada, Ludin, lode pela corona de neke samta du jada kyonse shanda chi ne da ma ba na den shi ne samla den shi sam kuno den samta je den chue nyam ne je wo le so da na la.
That's the meaning of this first line. Then what is the purpose of it? What should we take from this line? So here Lama Tsongkhapa is addressing his students, so he's writing directly to his students, but he's also writing to generations to come, those who'll encounter the text in later generations, such as ourselves. Here then Lama Tsongkhapa is saying to us, the motivation that you need to generate, to engage in the Dharma, is one just like my student Lodropel cultivated. A deep yearning that comes about through recognizing that samsara has no essence. There's nothing worth striving for in samsara. And give rise to a determination to develop your mind, to develop a mind that is free from being bound in the suffering realm of samsara. And then to take this understanding and broaden it, apply it to others, recognizing they too are in this position, and then take that resulting compassion and develop it into the determination to become a Buddha, so that one can guide others skillfully. So this is the motivation that Lodropel has developed, and this is the advice, or the meaning we should take from this is that Lama Tsongkhapa is advising us to emulate his students, to also develop such a motivation.
Dine zata ngaran zuki da ngaran zuki gewa zuki ngaran zuki nyamlen je guyo ba zata ngaran zuki nyamlen le chikdi donda de kar sam tang wo sin da jerim chigi mi chigi ya loma digi dine gi shu je jerim chigi ma chu sun ya de dine sun sha dine za ngi ne jege so so ra na da ko yu dung de le tar je ding yi de wa tar ba se to gu du sen be ge sam na tar ba to gu du 디마제 랑지부마의 심전 탐저 거기 동안에 저제 타바 토고디 타바 토베 돈달의 양이 현재 판바제 전부 유튜브 지기스 니 돈달라 안디링이 안지게 제 참되 안지 개화강 투두 두기 선배게 되네게 삼다 당고고 당하는 주 되네게 되네 삼다베나 직당보디 돈다데 가는 주 냠네 갈리고 다 지고로 봐 세상한 주디 돈다 되네 삼당고고 해제다디.
So what we should take from this then for ourselves explicitly is that Lama Tsongkhapa here is praising his students for having developed this particular motivation. And that motivation that Lodropel has developed would have come about independent on prior guidance from Lama Tsongkhapa. So Lama Tsongkhapa had been guiding this student for some time, and thereby the student, through following the advice from his teacher, had developed a determination to emerge from the suffering realms of samsara and develop that further into compassion and then bodhicitta. So through following the advice of his teacher, Lodropel has developed these excellent qualities, and hence Lama Tsongkhapa is praising his student here. So we then should take this as encouragement and as advice that now to set the motivation for our time together here to cultivate the causes within, to progress towards the generation of bodhicitta and the attainment of enlightenment myself, to utilize these few days we have together to strengthen all our own inner virtuous qualities, leading us ever closer to becoming bodhisattvas ourselves.
지난 뒤에 나시드 나세 식디다 간주의 인지kel 맞는 입세로 책으로 받듯이 나시드 지산당의 시기세 나세드 식디기 슈글라 니마 결혼기 되네 군로 삼로 되네 군로 체제 결혼지 냠는 제기 되버 여바 있나 근데 되버 있나 나잘 최슈에 되버 여바 인자 있나는 게마 시기세데 다 나시드 뒤에 나시드 식디기 슈라 제름증의 최승근세데 그거 당보도 군로 되는 시고후래 The
last word in the first line in Tibetan is not translated. It's usually translated as if. So here it would be if you have. It's translated as if or when. Maybe here as would work better. As you wrote to me with such longing. So this implies that Lama Tsongkhapa is going to respond. As he then does.
Denegi that mason jeremichigi ma sonyege da nganzo samlo ta nyamnechi sonyedi nganzo lia nganzo tangbo nganzo kar samlo nala kare kare ko nganzo lia kare chego do sibe da di ma tang ho ngode che da di sungorwa de za da nganzo diskat ma sonyedi da ma nganzo nyamnechi sonyedi kar sungor sa den ma di sungor 체티 최치 지대의 재경치 세디 된마 중국어다.
So now Lama Tsongkhapa starts to present his reply, his advice to Lord Repel. And so here he's establishing the very foundation for our practice, establishing the foundation that's required in order for us to bring about radical transformation of our mind. So the second line, regardless of your circumstances and what you have created in this life.
Ngāzu digi tuya da dunga segi samlo tangha delaya da samlo rig midawara so chik sum suyungurwa. Chisa da denegi pene deshi gongdu sheba nashin chene da ngāzu liya samlo nalaya karayungurwa san da chisa dunga sedi pene ngāsunga dunga samtang ane ngāsunga dene jelhada mili kebe ne kanga duwa sebi kanga digi da chik kanga digi sayaje da dengi dewa 대화 초도 교바지 토부도 랑지부 마이메 셈전 탐지 코유 동아 타달을 드지 디기 푼소바 산요고만 토부 고고도 셈베게 삼로지 용걸 군노지 용걸 봐 디군노디 초도 교바 디기 가릴리 미고르스는 톱자디 미유디 톱자디 셈전 탐지게 된다 산요고만 토예게 산요고만들 토바도 거래 지상 규용 차상 세 사바지 연된 푼소소바 토도기 산요고만들 토고도 셈베 군노시여래 지상 상계 도바도 군노 여바 인사 상계 고방 토고도 셈비 군노데까지 여바 있나 상계 고방기 토베기 된다라 자와를 베주시고 그래 베주 제바 있나 니 톱투고 얼와 지상 되네기 맞아 군노지 당보 군노 되네시기 직직 다 군노 초도 여바데 되네시 용고래 셔르바라
Whilst on a fundamental level we are all the same in wanting happiness and to not experience any problems or difficulties, we do have different ways of thinking about how to achieve happiness and overcome problems. The motivation for achieving a state completely freed of suffering and attaining lasting happiness, the motivation that is seen as supreme, is the one of bodhicitta, where one has the determination to become a Buddha in order to be able to guide beings to attain their own enlightenment. So those who have such a motivation, everything that they do will be conjoined with that motivation, and therefore will be creating causes that lead to the attainment of that goal. So again, the supreme of motivations is that of bodhicitta, and with such a supreme motivation, everything that you do is conjoined with that motivation and thereby leads to the attainment of that goal.
지상 톱자 탈도 산지에 고방데 톱을 되바 되냐기 dimba치 여바 군노 되지 여바나 디톱에치 베슬 주기리스 베주시기리스 데니기 딱 산지에 고방 톱을 되비기 군노다 매바나 톱야기 미유거로 매바나 디톱에 돈달에 베주시기 말해서 그러다.
With such a motivation then one will and necessarily make great efforts striving to achieve the goal, because this motivation of bodhicitta is one of immense strength. But if one lacks that motivation, one's strength and determination will also be lacking.
야, 내내 공원직이야. 다 semjen 탐지게 된다. 다 산지 고모 톱투면서 제상 콜웨 동아들에 타고도 다 콜웨 동아들에 띵이 대와 타르바세 된가랑 다 콜웨 동아들 타르쟁아라 다 띵이 대와 타르바 녀모바 사보나 제바 방베바 타르바세도 톱구도 소소라라다 타르바 톱구도 지나다 데니기 삼로 지금 그래서 타르바 돈이 듬바시리기레스 데니기 돈이 주어봐 있나 타르바 톱에게 된다라 배주시기레스 지나다 데니기 타르바 톱에 미유 타르바 톱고 쓰면 미유디 메나 타르바 톱에게 된다라 배주시기 말레스 지나다 타르바 톱고 쓰면 된다 돈이 듬바시어봐 있나 타르바 톱에게 된다라 배주시기레스다 데니 군론을 림바 니바디 차그루와
So the motivation of bodhicitta is the supreme motivation. But there are those who have also reflected well and have given rise, though, to a determination to gain freedom from the suffering realms of samsara. They've recognized no happiness can be found here, but they see the attainment of Buddhahood as beyond their capacity. So they put aside the attainment of Buddhahood, but rather strive for their own individual liberation from samsara. So with such a motivation, they will have a determination to achieve their own individual liberation. They'll have no motivation for Buddhahood, so therefore all their endeavors will not lead to the attainment of Buddhahood, because that's not their goal. But they do have the motivation for individual liberation, so that motivation will be conjoined with their endeavors, and in this way they create causes for their own individual liberation.
다디 가려운 것은 다양한 저기 코르 동안을 탈제 탈바세에 삼다 마신 비네 다 지금 안송 깨바는 안송 때강아 되는 안송 동안을 탈제네 지금 하다 미고 봉원도 거 토구도 선배게 삼로 돈여주여 봐 돈여여 봐지 용거래스 내내기 돈여기 좀 여현디기 당원도 고방 토바지 탑람을 베지기리스 지금 당원도 고방 토구도 선배게 톱자 미용원도 고방 토에게 돈여 좀 매나 원도 고바 토에게 된다래 베지기 말해 탑람을 베지기 말해서 송으로 와.
And the third level of motivation, this is for someone who is not thinking about liberation from samsara or Buddhahood, but rather they have a determination that in their very next rebirth they need to ensure they achieve another good rebirth. They do not fall into the lower realms. So this is their motivation, that they have to create excellent causes so that they achieve a good rebirth in their next life and do not fall to lower realms. And that alone is their motivation. So that is all that they do is that is conjoined with such a motivation will lead to such a goal. But it will not lead to liberation or enlightenment because that is not their motivation.
당군로지 가려운 것은 다 개와 치마야 삼마다제 체디점기 체디점기 동화세야다 디기두에 체디점기 디기 돈여기 dum바다 동화세야다 디기 돈여기 dum바 중고레스 지난 디 여바자 디기다 디기 군로지 가르쳐서 체디 디점기 디기두에다 동화세야게 탑라리아 베주시고레제레 마도 개와 치마당 이제 탈바 탐지kimbe 된다라 베치고 말고 가르스는 코 토비하게 미유코랑라 체 디점지 체 디기 디기 두야다 동화세야 미유디자 디 미유디 두야게 된다라 다 베치고래 타반 베치고래 시고로.
The fourth level of motivation is for those who do not yet think about lives beyond this. Their focus is solely within the confines of this mere life. So they are striving to achieve happiness in this life, to achieve the various pleasures and joys of this life, as well as overcome the various problems and difficulties of this life. So that is their motivation, and that is their motivation conjoined with their various activities. So that's the only goal they can hope for. Nothing beyond that, because their motivation is not beyond this one life. They're just looking at achieving some happiness and pleasure here and there, and overcoming their common ordinary difficulties.
안데네 자당한 주게 미유디 주예게 되녀기 듬바치여바나 미유디 주예게 되나라 탑시 베제체 디주예도나 베제체여도 안디 미유디 안지 가브리엘은 교아주도 가브리엘은 gel이 주타야지 용고래제 다 미유디 주예기 베탑라 미유코로 디지게 주예기 미유코로 매바 있나 디 주예기 콜 베제코로 지금 말해 베제코로 매전 탑라 맞이나 디 코데부디 용토야요 말해세 don다 디승고로 와다.
So from the understanding now of the four types of motivation, a few points should be clear. That it's imperative to have a clear end goal to achieve, because without, and if one does develop a goal, whatever of those goals one has, that is what one will strive for. One is not going to make effort for to achieve something that you haven't given rise to a determination to achieve. And independence on the strength of your motivation you'll have a deep determination to apply yourself to achieve that goal, or you'll just have the occasional wish, and thereby one will occasionally make effort to achieve that goal. But it's imperative, though, hopefully it's clear from this presentation, it's imperative to have a goal in mind. Then, in its dependence on how the depth of one's determination that one cultivates, that then leads to how much effort and speed of progress is made.
Donye dumba de la ralio. Donye dumba de kaze na sanje goban toya ge donye dumba yena sanje goban tobe chi de jawala zumguries. Sanje goban tobe chi de donye ge dumba mena sanje dobo goban tobe chi de jawala zumgu mare. Di ma zumna sanje goban toya yo mare shero. Ani ba de ande tarba dina jida kokoye dungal로 조제 tarba tobe ge donye ge dumba de soso kaze shukche na tarba donye ge tobe ge bezuye de shukche jeje ande bezu chi yo. De je ba na tarba de top tugures. 탈바 코로나 되니 dumba 코로나 메나 탈바 토에 된다래 베지치기 말했어. 디 맞에 봤나 탈바 토야요 말했어. 디 나지다다 섬 딜리교와 탈바 토야 섬마도나 개와치면 원도 고방 토구도 선비 만성의 dungal에 탈 원도 고방 토구도 되니 dumba 지어 봤나 디까지 숙체바이나 원도 고방 토야기 탑람래 베지치기 그랬어. 디 제바이나 원도 고방 토투 그랬어. 당 원dio 고방 토비치도 되니 dimba코로면나 원dio 고방 토베기 돈달에 비지 코라지기 말 마제바이나 원dio 고방 토투 말에 해서지 디승거다.
What I'm hoping to convey here is why motivation is always emphasized so, why it is seen as so important. Because motivation, we should understand, has two components. Motivation has two components. The one is the end goal. That is critical. Without a particular end goal, or whatever one's end goal is what one is going to be directed towards achieving. So in our context, Buddhahood, liberation from samsara, individual liberation, or a good rebirth. These are the three Dharma goals. So that's the one component of the motivation. The other is the strength of that motivation. Because one may intellectually desire a particular goal, but that has very little strength. To the extent that it rises within oneself as a deep yearning, the degree of that yearning within, one will make effort to achieve that goal. So these are the two components of the motivation. The end goal of Buddhahood, liberation, or an excellent rebirth, as well as then the striving, the yearning that arises within, which leads to the focus in one's endeavors to achieve that goal, as opposed to a mind that's just weak and wishy-washy.
체디 최치 세디다 제자당하는 저기 dunro이나다 미나다 망체와디 체디점기 체디 최치 체디 디기두에 튼견점이야 튼견서 최치라는 튼견시 월다 체디기 안에 디기 두야다 동아세게 돈달라 튼견 차긴디기 두고래 줍제 잡았 비치고래 사지 순고다가 저기 dunro이나다 아주 미나다 망체와디 가르치 월스는 코와바디게 되니 망체와 가르스 체디점기 동아세야다 디기 두야기 안 소시 차긴 되네게 튕긴 줍제 네 디용야래야 디기 두야래야 안에 비스치고래 셔레다 체디 소시 세야데.
In terms of motivation, the vast majority of beings are focused solely on this one life, striving to have as comfortable a life as possible, as free of problems and difficulties as possible. So the Tibetan starts with what we have at the end of the sentence, this life. So this is the focus of the vast majority of beings. On striving, the next word in Tibetan is circumstances. Beings are focused merely on this achieving good circumstances in this life. Their mind is dominated by the various problems and conflicts and aggressions in their life, as well as attaining various pleasures and enjoyments in their life. This is what dominates the motivation behind for the vast majority of beings. So this is all they are striving to achieve. So we've been speaking about the 4 different types of motivation. The vast majority of beings don't have one of the first 3 types, which are the Dharma motivations, but the motivation of achieving good circumstances merely in this life.
Jisa di denige samlo dit pe chik thung shu samlo dit pe chik chungsho ro chagore. Jisa che di samye digi duya da che di samye kanga se beje nya chebe ne da che delia digi de so duya da kanga se thwe yongor ma do jewa chima da deni tarba da tamje kimbe ko ba donye me ba za denige yusa tugo mar ba sir. Jisa deni za che di samye jawala beje chigore se da du chen sam dang gu gore se ro 심주 제 오래서 제가 되는 거 심주 제배네 다래도 앞에 내가 저게 레갈레 sem전 누르나 코로도 체디점이 디기루야 강아세야 된다려 지 내자사야 다 주동야 라서바 칼라치야 돼 디지고래 아니 지게 자월에도 돼야 아니 지파 증야 라서바 지고로 sem전이네 당아서 미네다가로 왔다가로 지 쇼게냐라 고다바도 그디나지 레가장야래디 오당아지게 산예까지 칼라니야 고도 안둘로니야 고도 모자니야 고지 고도 파참냠도야 고도 세데니게 조서다야 된다라 아니 지금 소식이 부고다 대설야 아니 조서다야 고도 체디잠 기된다라 가지고 두시네 다 튕긴주야 될래가래 돼야 책임주야 돼 디저지 임바데 가지고다 망보디 되네 임바데 세부로 지가 하고 두고로 와다 저 삼다 되는진 두시네 삼다베나 다지다 군로를 마서나 삼다나 군로데 간에 지우도 시바 하고 두고리 해서 되네 삼당고를 해서 그래.
A mind that is focused on achieving good circumstances in this mere life is a mind that is particularly narrow. The quality of that mind is not yet sufficiently developed so that it can create powerful causes that will actually lead to liberation and enlightenment. The mind is too weak and feeble, too narrow, to be truly focused on the attainment of a distant goal, a supreme goal, such as liberation and enlightenment. So for ourselves, we need to take an honest look at our own mind. What dominates our way of thinking from when we wake up to when we go to sleep. And the truth is, for the vast majority of beings, the mind is focused almost solely on achieving this life's pleasures and overcoming this life's problems. And we think of our various activities. So we take our to-do list. I need to do all these things today, and I need to do these over the medium term and the longer term. We have these goals, and we put all our time, our energy, our thought, our planning into this, and we can come to recognize that this is largely just about having comfortable conditions in this life and overcoming problems and difficulties in this life. Whether it's from the nice meal that I've had and I hope to have again, the nice time with my friends and I hope to have it again, and the nice purchases I've made and the future purchases I hope to make, all of these tied to this one life. Such a mind is a particularly narrow mind.
Denege da tsedizami diyu duya da dunga se de danda la tsedi chise jidar chekyang tapshiro shikare chebe ne daune kashene tsedi diyu duya da dunga se danda la tablam che du tablam no tu che di genji ane jige dunga yo ade chagore yungore was jidar chekyang ane kasheme tablam ajige sosoge 이루다 튠비 지소의 튠비게 야고 제바이나 야지 동안 세디 되기 주야다 강아 세야데 용 두고 와다 용고로 와 benir sosuge lega ya buche da 직제 benir sosu tunje doyare 제 소수게 되는 제 도가 야보야다 연구로 가시 대직 된대기 소수의 체디 디규트비하다 체디게 동아 강아 세게 된다래야 안 지생기 지생기 구마고라서 봐다 셴리야 안에 뇌세체 봐라서 봐 셴리야 지 지게 마로 지게데 소 디지 지 강아 제베이나 디기 용하게 잡라 동아 소소이네 동아 뭐 보여 구마구베네 디 데볼라 아니 년도베 주야다 정가다 다야 경화다야 안디메베 지금 마로 잡베나 아니 지 미출레 지 천자로 수요데 소소이나 마기바다 강아수야 지자 데니기 제당 세디점이 디기 줍다디야 두투타 야고 마신 바이나 디기 제보텔레 디기 용하게 잡라 동아 용하다 강아 세게 잡라 강아 망아 용하게 차고레스 책이 세디점이 디기 줍다에 마신 바이나 데니기 돈에 용고레스 데니기 강아 용하게 잡라 가사 디기 용하게 잡라 강아 세게 잡라 강아 망아래야 돼 용고레스 지들 제장해야 돼.
Looking at more of the sentence, it's a bit mixed for us. So regardless of your circumstances and what you have created in this life. So here, we can recognize when we look at how we've lived our lives and how others do in our world, we can see whilst the vast majority of people are striving to have comfortable circumstances in this life, they employ a wide variety of methods to achieve that. Some methods are better and some are worse. Some people do experience some success and they're quite content with what they've achieved and they've made quite some progress in their material comforts in their life, and others less so, as others perhaps encounter many problems and struggle to get ahead. But also, in terms of methods that apply, there are those where it's quite clear that the person has a wish to live in harmony with others, to live in a way that perhaps even brings benefit to others. And there are those people who, through their activities, do add to harmony in society and maybe improve society, helping others in need. And there are others who perhaps engage in illegal work, or maybe their activities are not illegal, but they are dishonest, they deceive others, they are quite aggressive, maybe even resorting to violence. So there's a wide variety of methods that people engage in. Some lead to success in some areas and other methods lead to more problems. And some methods bring more benefit to society, others really bring harm to society. There's quite some variety, or regardless of your circumstances and what you've created in this life. This then refers to these variety of methods that people employ.
난 세디점이 디기 주요다 동아 세계 돈달라다 나중에 지소다 튠비게 소소라는 게 레가레야 나 총자다 디니 지체베네 다 디기로 제다 세디게 디기 돼서 주요다 동아 돼서 세디 용고를 때 이내하다 치견 지들 제견 치시도 제가 디니기 디기요나 남사데 바 지모 규르체 동아 규르차 차다 한테스 강아 세트나 양지 강아 채야 돼 주파주 규와 지 규르데 템포 디기 세디기 디기 대화 템포치다 동아 세기 템포치 용타야 돼 용거 말에 제자데 두시네 가수르 규르체 안지 모 규르체 안지 양자 디기 되셔나 양 강아 지 동아 자 강아 세요 강아 채야 강아 되 세베네 양 강아 사발래요 조해메 바두시네 강아다 동아디 요 차고래 제자 디네 인자 다 가르치고 말하는 아주 삼로따다디 세디점기 디기 주에 동아세게 삼로따지 레갈레바디 다다다 차고 말해서 그러다 된다라.
Probably for the vast majority of people, and I imagine for everyone here, the way you live your life, your general activities, add to society. They are harmonious with society. They do not bring harm to society. But however well one lives one's life, if the focus is just on this one life, all the pleasures and successes one experiences or achieves, these do not last. And when you look back over your life, you'll recognize this. every pleasant experience has come to an end. Every success, that joy, has faded. And very soon, new problems are encountered, or discontent arises, dissatisfaction, wanting something better or wanting the same again. So every success that we've achieved, every pleasurable experience fades, doesn't last. So the meaning here is, to the extent one is focused on this life, to that extent one will remain discontent, dissatisfied, unhappy, because being focused on the pleasures and overcoming the problems of this mere life cannot lead to lasting happiness, cannot lead to lasting happiness.
인자다 베네제름 제데 체디점이 체디기 동아세된 디기 두블레 베지 마제 송고 말이다. 조 삼로데 체디점기 디기 두에 동아 삼 디세 삼다교 말레스. 이나 체디기 디기데 체디기 동아세 고고로 와다 탑럼 베지 제고로 와. 다 군노들라다 딩 대시 진 셰바나지다 순슈바나지 군노 가르삼 땅으로선 코비에 동아 다다데 자고도 세 랑지부 마이 메심전 탐지오 코비에 동아를 자세 야 탈비고 고파디 토고도 선배 삼로 디니게 삼로 딱 군노 디니게 셈전 탐제 안도나게 상요고바 토바지기세베 셈전 탐제를 디기 주고도 셈전 탐제 강하게 세제 디기 분소바 두고 디인상에 안 셈전 탐제게 된다려야 안 지기 판도 주의하게 된다 상요고바 토바지기세베 삼로 디니시 땅고레스 군노 디니케제 안 소소라게 안 지기 디 념도 군노 디니케 쇼라야다 세디 두개 소소게 튕겨 두야려 세동아스 디기 튕겨 베제 제고로 알아가 쳐야 되든지 자위에 군노 되니케 다디 돈다라 아니 디 토비하게 심지어 탐지 디기 주야 동아세게 탑람디다 베제 조지고래 체디 점이 동아세 디기 주야디 동아세다 디기 주야디 샤르셔고래 조마제 바제 샤르셔 조디 아니 심지어 탐지 코르 동아라 제제 탈비고방 아니 산지고방 토구도 선배 삼로 군노디 미유디 상요고파데 바샤 디토에 된다라 자와 베서체 조디 제고레 에세지 송고다.
Must be understood very clearly what Lama Tsongkhapa is saying here, because it's a little subtler than is often understood. What he's addressing in talking about the faults of striving just for happiness in this life, he's not talking so much about the activities one engages in, but primarily he's talking about the motivation behind those activities. Because it's not that Lama Tsongkhapa is saying one shouldn't care for one's family, one shouldn't go to work and buy certain possessions. Those activities are not what he's pointing to, but rather the motivation behind those activities. Because if one develops the kind of motivation that was presented before, in particular the supreme motivation of bodhicitta, where one reflects that this life and samsara in its entirety has no essence, is nothing worthy of striving for. But what is worthy of striving for is to transform one's mind, so one's mind becomes freed of samsara and liberated from samsara, and to help all others achieve that same state, and therefore develop the determination to become a Buddha. If one has such a motivation, one will still engage in a variety of activities. One will go to work so that one has enough money to have somewhere comfortable to live and enough to eat, and will have good relationships with one's friends and so forth. But behind these activities will be this remarkable motivation of bodhicitta. And thereby, all the various activities one engages in will lead to those activities now being causes for enlightenment. So the only activities that would fall away if one has such a motivation are those which are harmful. They will easily be dropped, and one will engage in all the other activities that are required to bring about that great goal. So again, the point Lama Tsongkhapa is making here is primarily on the quality of the motivation, because that will lead to non-virtue being dropped away, and the virtuous activities one engages in including those that look very mundane, but they will be done with a motivation of bodhicitta. So this is what we need to strive to develop.
안에네 자다 가는 중에 다직디기 가는 된다 냠슬린 거야지 당하는 좀도 삼다이로 왔다 제제사다 삼제 탐제 고유 동아들이야 세제 띵이 되어 토고도 니 토비에 된다래야 네 직배수 세제 아니 계절 디봉 디바 빠야다 개와 두비에 지긴 세비다 군노데 삼로 데니스다제 맞아 개와 두고리에 세제 지도 소소하나서 디네 삼다데 예치 무샤워다 디링게 등하서 그 소수기 냠len제 지나 데네자 결혼주미 데레야 지삼 검자 레바디 지사 세디기 디기주야다 동아세야 잠마레 삼로 고고 마디 데가스네 최세지 삼다야도 어다디 개와 치마야는 타바다 탐지kimbe고 파티 리고 삼로는 리고마도 제 체디점이 디기주야 삼는 무소야다 내가래디 제르고로 와지자 어다디 무라나 진유야라게 지지제제 가르나 감정도야라게 선배스는 거라 지나디 최세 삼로도 삼로 맞아 검자다 개와사야 리어도 삼당에도 다 체디점이 마임바 나스기 치마다 타바 탐지kimbe 군노 여바데 세부라 리고르 디네자다 평화지대 검자데 데네기 여바데 야보레 디네자다 가지고 어다디르데 안지게 네 냠는지에 고갑텔레베 야고 중소 소소기 지 가와 검야다 안디자 데르기 나랑 지부자 마이베 셈제 탐제디기 주야다 동화세 타도 상교고 토베기 돈달리 지인선베다 삼 말아서 삼다 냠는지 와다 삼로도 두스당고 차고다 대양서.
So what I want you to take away from these two lines then is to have the strong determination to develop as a wholesome motivation, in particular to try over our few days together to progress towards developing the motivation of bodhicitta, as well as understanding well how to develop such a motivation so you can continue in these meditations beyond this retreat. Because what this retreat is not here to give you is to teach you techniques to have a successful life, but it's to teach you how to transform your way of thinking that can lead to a transformation of lives throughout this and lives to come through transforming your mind. The focus here is not on the worldly conditions, on overcoming our everyday problems and so forth, but on transforming our mind so that our mind becomes completely free of all problems. So in your motivation, develop the understanding of what is meant by the various sufferings of samsara and why they are experienced, why they come about. In other words, afflictions giving rise to determination to gain freedom from samsara. And on that basis, develop love and compassion for others, the deep wish for others to be free, to attain a state free of suffering too, and develop that into bodhicitta. This is really the purpose of our time here together, to progress further towards attaining this mind or developing this mind of bodhicitta. Then thank you. We'll conclude therefore this morning. Thank you.